because his support structures were unusually durable. Michael, you go on to write, a loyal army of followers, a huge disinformation network, and a party of soul-selling cowards can crowd out facts for a long time. But eventually, reality catches up. It's finally happening. I'd say we should celebrate. But there now arises a question of how he'll react as reality closes in on him. I fear we haven't begun to see the worst. And Michael, to that point, I know people in Trump's orbit who are Trump supporters who sort of nervously have looked at themselves in recent weeks amid this war in Iran, war of choice, and look ahead to this year's midterms, and particularly if Republicans, as forecasted, lose at least one House, that the president in his final 2 years will be, with no chance of getting anything passed, will simply be in full-on legacy mode, trying to leave his mark on history with zero guardrails in place.
Yeah, it's really concerning, and that's why I decided to end the column on that rather dour note. But I think it's something that we all should be thinking about right now. You know, usually Trump is in the mid to high 30s in the polls, and he's been sinking and sinking. And the polls have just been getting worse in the last few weeks, and I think particularly because of Iran and the support he's shedding from past backers over Iran, they're going to get worse. Now, what's he going to do? How's he going to respond? You know, usually when presidents get down into the 30s, they do something about it. They change course. Barack Obama, I'm not sure he ever got into the 30s, but after the 2010 midterms, when the Democrats got shellacked, his word, he did pivot. He pivoted toward the center. He pivoted away from public investment and toward deficit reduction. George W. Bush, when he went down in the polls, I'm not sure he pivoted as emphatically toward the center, but he dropped some of his more right-wing initiatives, most notably in 2006, his attempt to privatize Social Security. He saw that that was very unpopular, and he dropped it. Donald Trump, I don't think, it's an understatement to say, is capable of any kind of pivot. Donald Trump is just going to double down. One piece of evidence we've seen here is that he demands of Pam Bondi's replacement at the Justice Department that that person be even more aggressive in pursuing these unethical and probably illegal investigations of his political opponents. So if he's a cornered animal in the last 2 years, you're absolutely right. We need to look out.
Michael, what do you think Donald Trump is prepared to do and those around him are prepared to do leading up to these midterms? This is a president who has cast aspersions on elections before and interfered mightily. And so now that he's in an even weaker position politically, you know, that's a concern of mine. What specifically do you think he might be prepared to do? Are you hearing anything about preparations on that front? And what should the rest of us do to prevent that from happening?
Yeah, that last question is a good one. I'm not sure I have a good answer to that one, Mara. But, well, we can look at what they've done. They passed this Save America Act, under which the Trump administration can make a lot of moves to try and block voting, suppress voting when Election Day comes around. They could put ICE agents at polling places, which has been discussed. Also, less discussed lately, but let's never forget, the Insurrection Act. The Insurrection Act is so vague and so amorphous that it enables a president to do practically anything. I mean, a president can, in theory, deputize something like the Oath Keepers or the Proud Boys to be his literal private army to go and look at polling places. Would Trump go that far? I'm not sure he would go that far. We have seen evidence that public opinion does matter sometimes, occasionally, to this White House. And if it looks like something is going to be really unpopular or has become really unpopular, they'll pull back. They did that in Minneapolis. So there is evidence that public opinion still matters in this country. But I'm nervous, and I think a lot of experts like Mark Elias and people like that are really nervous about what they have hatched for Election Day that the rest of us can't even contemplate.
The important new piece available to read online now. Editor at The New Republic, Michael Tomasky. Michael, thank you as always.